Mike and I read every proposal that we get for a speaker. Honest to God, we read each of them. And this year we had a little over 250 of them. And probably about a third of the way through the readings, we both kind of looked at each other and went, okay, trust is a huge topic this year.
Try to fix the current system or reimagine something new. Will healthcare ever serve consumers just like me and you? The power's in our hands, but every side's gotta come together. We want the newer generations to get something better. Until we flip the script and talk about what gets prevented. Until we see the changes permanent as if we meant it. Until healthcare is finally consumer-centered. We've got a lot to rap about.
Welcome back to the leading podcast about how consumer health works. We spotlight how healthcare is being designed, marketed, and delivered from the consumer point of view, and profile leaders who are championing the move to preventive care. If you want to understand healthcare both as a builder or operator and as a consumer yourself, this is the place for you. Here's what's going down today. First up, we have the Flava of the week about the wide release of health in ChatGPT. How is this latest version different than what OpenAI announced at the beginning of the year? And how should the high volume of health-related searches on their platform help us prioritize how we should show up in those moments? I'll talk about that. Then it's a special HCIC preview show. We're talking about the Healthcare Internet Conference, October 25th through 28th in Orlando. So first I speak with Kathy Divis and Mike Schneider from Greystone.net, who tell us about what to expect and trends that they saw from session submissions. Then I speak with Erica Rasmussen, a new attendee who shares her recommendations for first-timers. And I wrap up with Jake Poore, who gives a glimpse of his upcoming keynote. I'm Jared Johnson. Let's get it. Flava of the week. If you saw OpenAI announce the launch of health in ChatGPT just a couple of weeks ago and wondered how it was different than the initial launch of ChatGPT for health at the beginning of the year, you're not alone. The short answer is that there are essentially two versions of the same consumer product, but let's compare the two announcements and what they mean for health-conscious consumers. ChatGPT Health, announced January 7th, was the initial limited release version. It was a strictly sandboxed, walled-off beta tab where health data and chats were isolated. Health in ChatGPT, on the other hand, was launched July 23rd, and that's the redesigned, broader U.S. rollout based on early user feedback. It's now widely available to all U.S. adults across tiers, and it removes that strict wall, so connected health contexts can flow with permission into regular everyday chats. The biggest difference is where and how the health information can be used. So when ChatGPT Health was first announced, the experience lived within a separate, dedicated health space. Health chats, files, and memories were compartmentalized. And now, connected data remains specifically protected, but ChatGPT can access relevant health information anywhere in your account across chats after asking permission. So they've also expanded platform integrations, adding deeper connections with Epic, Oracle Health, One Medical, and Function Health alongside Apple Health. What's the consumer lens? While some continue to describe AI-based health searches as dangerous in various forms, it's clear the momentum can't really be stopped here. When ChatGPT for Health launched in January, OpenAI reported that more than 230 million people turn to their platform for health-related questions every week. As of July, that number now tops 300 million, a 30% increase on an already fast-growing number. So the reality is that while we suffer through a period right now where AI engines still hallucinate, unfortunately, and regulations aren't keeping up, consumers aren't waiting to ask their friendly neighborhood LLM for help understanding a lab result, fixing their back pain, or trying a new medication, which means we should be doing everything we can to architect favorable experiences informed by accurate information that lead consumers to improved health. If your organization isn't yet a trusted source in that process, it's time to make that happen. Let's prioritize providing effective experiences with the way that healthcare organizations are represented in AI engine searches so we can guide consumers to better health, whether they're using the new Health in ChatGPT or their LLM of choice. That's another way that we'll build the healthcare of tomorrow. And that's the Flava of the week. Hey, welcome back. Let's get into the flow. Today, I'm here with Kathy Divis and Mike Schneider from Greystone.net. We're going to talk all things HCIC 2026. Mike and Kathy, welcome to the show.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Yeah, excited to be here. Thanks, Jerry.
Always good to have, friends of the show and, just colleagues here in the industry. I always want to say, what's the latest and greatest with YouTube? I think we're going to get into that with HCIC. But anything before we get into a preview of this year's conference, anything else that's just cool that you're thinking about working on these days besides that? What else is kind of the latest and greatest with you two?
Gosh, I don't know. We're spending an awful lot of time on HCIC these days and just trying to stay cool here in Atlanta in the hot part of July.
Yeah, Kathy's right. I mean, it's funny. I think we think a lot about topics for the industry, and so that it fits in perfectly with when we put together a conference. And that's one of the things that we talk a lot about too, is, not just AI and how it's changing our industry, which is obviously, a big tough part of this, but also how that's impacting other aspects of what we do as healthcare marketers. And so Kathy and I have talked about that a lot. AI is important, obviously hugely changing our industry, but then there are other things that are happening inside our industry that are somewhat impacted by it. But in addition to that, it's not necessarily AI. It's the nuts and bolts of healthcare marketing are changing.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we put together the agenda, one of the things we've had to do this year, and I might be jumping the gun, but we've had to really balance how much AI we have in the agenda versus other topics that are equally important.
Yeah, exactly. Those things didn't go away.
Changed maybe, but not away.
Exactly.
Well, that's a great point. Well, yeah, I do want to ask all about, how you picked topics and where you focused and what you were seeing the most on. I do want to just bring to people's attention, even before that, the fact that this is the 30th year, the 30th anniversary of the conference. So maybe that's a good thing just to share with us, why is that so significant? I mean, 30 years.
Well, we've all aged in those 30 years, but if you think back 30 years ago, that was 1996. And that seems like yesterday in some ways, and then a million years away in other ways. And things have changed so much. Remember back in our very first one in 1996, it was at Bally's in Vegas. And yes, I've been to all 30 of them. And we had maybe 50 people there, tops, I would say. And we were all trying to figure out what this new thing was called the internet and how it was going to impact healthcare. And how could we put our brochures online and let people read them? And I mean, it's worlds different than the way it is now, just how we connect. AOL was the main provider back in the day. Dial-up modems. I mean, it was very, very different. So to look back 30 years later and go, wow, look at where we've gone. And that's one of the things we hope to do this year is to celebrate not only where we are, but where we came from and how we got there through those 3 decades, and have a little bit of fun, a little party along the way. But really, let people reflect on what has changed in our industry. And that's everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say, when you think about it, it's the 30th annual, and 30 years ago, there was kind of a similar thing that was happening in our industry. Whereas, AI is really changing things dramatically with how we do healthcare marketing and what we do as digital marketers. But that same thing was happening 30 years ago with the internet. So at that point in time, there were a lot of naysayers. I mean, there were people who were like, how long is this going to last? And is it really going to take over our industry? And, there were other people who were like, it's going to change everything we do. And it's going to be a complete evolutionary, movement beyond where we are today in terms of healthcare marketing. And we've got kind of that same echo happening today with AI. So while the topic is different and how we're going to move forward is different, that really interesting feeling of everything is changing all at once was the same feeling that we had 30 years ago.
A generational shift, I guess they would call it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I was about to say, it doesn't remind you at all of anything that's going on today, does it?
Yeah.
Just related platforms, honestly. So,
yeah.
Okay, so let's dive into topics. So what were y'all seeing as popular topics of sessions that were being submitted? And I'm guessing there were probably some themes that emerged there as some of those areas kind of you saw more than others.
Yeah, Mike and I read every proposal that we get for a speaker. Honest to God, we read each of them. And this year we had a little over 250 of them. And probably about a third of the way through the readings, we both kind of looked at each other and went, okay, trust is a huge topic this year. And it was in so many of our proposals. And certainly we knew that was an issue already, in advance of starting. But what we've figured out pretty quickly is people were really trying to figure out how to build their authority. And it became pretty evident that, and I mean, I knew this from other things and other conferences and other readings, but, um, you know, there's been a huge change in what the CMOs of today are responsible for, and where they're at risk. And I think healthcare systems, well, probably all marketers, all businesses really are at the risk of becoming invisible before somebody even visits your website. Because today the buying journey starts on GPT or Gemini or Claude or wherever it might be. And so if you don't have your ducks in a row, so to say, on how you're showing up in those kinds of searches, then you really become invisible. So I think the CMOs of today are trying to figure out, um, how do they build how do they build a brand that earns trust in the marketplace, that shows some authority, that has recommendations. And so we saw a lot of that coming through in our proposals, is how organizations, how CMOs and their staff were really working to build trust and to build authority. And I think that came through as loudly as any theme I've seen in years and years. I don't know, Mike, would you agree with that as you looked at the
Oh, yeah.
proposal?
I mean, definitely. And the other thing that wraps itself around all of that is how customers come to trust healthcare systems and the information that they get when they're doing research online. So with the integration of AI into searches, you get information back. If you've got a hip pain and you go and you look it up online and you're trying to find a provider locally and learn as much as you can, you get information back that may be AI generated. And then the question becomes, is that information accurate? Is that something that I can trust? And so what we find is that this role of the healthcare system is kind of integrating the brand of the healthcare system and the feedback that you get from AI at Google into the message that you're getting and feeding back to the consumer. So it's a mix of things. Then there isn't really a straightforward way to be able to say this is endorsed by Emory Healthcare System or, whatever. And so we're doing it in a digital and technologically advanced way. But we're finding that that's what organizations are really struggling with. I mean, you can go online right now and type into Google or Gemini or anything, tell me about how hip pain is resolved. And you can get 20 different answers that, maybe even conflict with each other. So how do we make sure that healthcare systems get the right information to patients and consumers, and then also give them a touch point for conversion?
And I think the bottom line is that marketers have to figure out how their brand, no matter what organization it is, how their brand becomes the brand that the buyers trust even before they make that decision to buy. So you've got to have that trust in place in your brand in advance before they move forward into the next step. And maybe that's always been true, but I think it's incredibly important now, and maybe more true than it's ever been.
Okay, so related to that, what about keynote speakers? How did you decide who you'd invite as a keynote speaker?
Yeah, that's always a challenge every year. Typically, we have 3 or 4 keynotes across our 3 days or so of meetings, and we've kind of emerged now where we have we have 3 keynotes and then 3 main stage panel discussions. So the keynotes are great. We try to have the one that is kind of a provider in the industry that can speak from his or her perspective of something they've done and why it's important and how you can move forward. And this year that's going to be Pamela Landis from Hackensack Meridian. She's going to use the Artemis moonshot as an example or a framework on how to reach for something that is maybe beyond you a little bit for the best or a better patient experience. The second keynote or a second keynote, we always try to have it be really somebody that's got a very serious, strong knowledge of marketing, kind of pure marketing. Last year it was Dr. Collins from the University of Michigan. This year it's going to be Rich Bracken, who came out of healthcare marketing actually in some agency work, and he was a long-term traveling DJ. So you'll like this, Jared. So he's going to be up on stage with a soundboard. He's going to incorporate a lot of music into his talk. The first thing he's going to ask people to do is to throw up onto into a QR code or a screen, a sound, a piece of music, a song that makes them either happy and or makes them confident. And then he's going to build those pieces of music into his talk. I think it'll be fascinating. I've seen it. He's great. And then the third one is also usually something that either helps you. With the third one, we try to have somebody who either helps you really kind of grow yourself personally or adds a deeper layer of understanding to the relationships that are going on. And this year it'll be Jake Poore. And he's going to talk about AI from his perspective, and that is authentic interactions in an AI world. And if you've seen Jake before, he's fabulous. I could listen to him read a phone book and I'd still enjoy it. But anyway, so we're looking forward to that. And then just real quickly, we're going to have 3 main stage panel discussions. One will be a group of CMOs about what's weighing on them these days. The second one will be kind of a deeper dive on AI. And the third one will be a little bit on how to use Epic as a marketer. That, we all know that, and the pros and the cons and on all of that, but really kind of a little bit of, what are the tools that you can use to really improve your EMR and the tools that are available with that.
Yeah, I would say, when we think about that formula for keynote speakers and presenters in the conference as a whole, but since we're talking about keynote speakers, it's heavily, education on timely topics, but it's also feeling good about you and yourself and your career and being energized. I mean, we're really into, high energy folks that get up and make you think about things from a different perspective. And when you walk out, you feel pretty good and you feel like you're ready to go back and dive into it. So a lot of times we try to put that kind of mix together, and I feel pretty good about that we have that mix.
Yeah, looking forward to all of those. I truly am. And rounding that out, I mean, it's just great to hear the thought process that goes behind that. There's another session I understand that's happening, kind of a new one this year, an AI think tank as a post-conference workshop. Tell me about that. Like, how is that going to work?
Yeah, I mean, AI, it's all over our agenda. It's all over everybody's agenda. It's all over our podcasts and blogs, and everything that we read on LinkedIn. So we know that. And we said, maybe what we need is an opportunity for folks to get together and just have kind of a conversation about what's going on. And so the AI think tank is going to be the last day of HCIC. Typically we end the program around lunchtime, and the AI think tank is going to start after that. So it'll be from lunchtime until around 5 on Wednesday. And we're going to have speakers. There are going to be at least 5 different short sessions on the different aspects of AI and how it's impacting healthcare marketing. And it's some of the people in our industry who are really leading the way. We're going to have a panel discussion at the end, a fireside chat. And the idea is to incorporate conversation in all of this. So we want people to ask questions. We want folks who've been through the 2.5 days of HCIC to be able to say, I sat in a session, I heard this. What do you guys think about it? And we want to just be able to kind of talk about it and leave feeling like maybe we helped answer some questions and wrap it up in a little package before you head out the door. So, but I think it'll be great. I'm really excited about it, and it's going to be an in-depth on what's happening with AI and marketing and healthcare.
In the office, we've been calling it an AI intensive.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense. All right. That sounds like a really cool format. And looking forward to seeing how that goes. Okay. So last opportunity for any other observations or things to share about this year's conference.
Well, we're going to be in Orlando at the Omni Champions Gate. So we're excited about that. We're at the end of October, not in November. So that's a little different for us, but we're excited about that. Registration is open. If you want to learn more, see the agenda is up online. It's all available at hcic.net. And we'd love to see people there.
Yeah, I was going to say the Orlando hotel, the Champions Gate, really nice hotel, great rooms. It's a great venue. There are some nice restaurants in the hotel. It's also not terribly far away from things like downtown Disney and all of that. So there are places to go and things to do, and it's a good spot for a conference. And we've been there before, so it's not new to us, and we're excited about it. It's also, last year we were in Las Vegas, and I think everybody got their steps in, walking around Caesars and going from the hotel tower to the conference space. And this is going to be different because everything is very compact. So you come down the elevator and you're in the conference space.
Yeah, just
I think it'll be good. And also, if you were tired of walking last year, it'll be a little easier this year.
It should be, and it should be good weather towards the end of October, I would think.
Yeah.
So we're really excited, and Mike and I are really excited because we're really looking forward to celebrating the 30th annual. 20th, I almost had a slip there. The 30th annual conference. And we plan to have little celebrations throughout the entire event. So there's not going to just be one time where we mention it, but there will be raffles, there will be surprise food and drink, maybe champagne toasts a certain time. But we're going to do a variety of different things throughout the whole conference to really celebrate what it means to have been in this industry and seen this change over 30 years, because it's momentous.
It really is. It'll be here before you know it, too. So we will include a link to registration in the show notes in this episode, and we'll look forward to seeing you there. It'll be here before we know it, truly. But thanks for giving us a bit of a preview today.
Thank you for having us. Enjoyed
thanks for having us.
All right, well, we're going to continue our HCIC preview episode here, and I'm here with Erica Rasmussen, who was a first-time attendee last year at the conference, and I had some questions for her about what her thoughts were for those who will be attending for the first time this year. So, Erica, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I was telling you before we, hit record here that you were one of the first names that came to Kathy's mind when we started to put together this whole preview episode idea, and I thought it was really cool to be able to point out tips and insights for first timers. Those things were clearly fresh on your mind, probably just a few months ago, it seems like, when last year's conference happened. But before I ask you about that, let's give our listeners a little bit of background on you. Tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do, including the poster you have sitting behind you there in your office.
Yes. So hi, I'm Erica Rasmussen. I work with Gunnison Valley Health as our Director of Marketing and Communications here in rural Colorado. And I've been on our executive team for a little over a year. It was my first foray into healthcare, hence why I just was a newcomer at HCIC last year. I've done marketing and communications for 2 decades and have been in our community here in the Gunnison Valley, very rural Colorado, working for about 15 years. And so I know our audience really, really well. And the healthcare side has come along. There are so many intricacies in regards to healthcare, which is why I was so excited to get a chance to attend HCIC last year and head back again this year. And as for the awesome mural behind me, we have really stepped up our game in regards to community events. We just held our first annual Spring into Wellness event here at Gunnison Valley Health in May, and we had over 16 departments here, as well as 20 community partners, and Mountain Roots, one of our local nonprofits that teaches kiddos all about gardening and growing vegetables, actually did this finger paint your own mural here. So that is like hundreds of people's finger paintings to create this beautiful mural that we're going to hang in one of our family medicine centers here soon.
Well, if that doesn't give us just, an idea of the community, like you're saying, you really do know the community. You know who you're serving here. That's fantastic. All right, so I want to dig in a little bit on that experience that you had last year as a first-time attendee at HCIC. I would guess you have some insights, some tips. So, let's start with what worked well. Like, what were some of the strongest positive parts of the experience you had last year?
I'd say number one tip I have is connect. Don't be afraid to connect and see how many people you can connect with. I think that was a huge piece for me. I accepted the challenge to myself to go to every single vendor booth, really make the most of the time in between sessions and different events that happened, whether it was the pre-conference or conference session in between. What do you call that? The gaps in time that we have between sessions. But really take that time to connect. And I made so many connections and met so many different people, whether they were peers or vendors. And it really helped guide some significant change here at Gunnison Valley Health by making those connections, and helped me guide myself personally and professionally. And even just like I went for a run with someone the last day of the conference because we both had running in common. So don't be afraid to connect, because you could make a new friend. You could meet the next vendor that's going to change the direction of your marketing. And regardless, you're going to have a lot of fun in the process.
It does take a little bit of getting outside yourself and finding people, but you're right. This community has a desire to connect in the first place. So for the very most part, you're going to have people who actually do want to connect back. So I've definitely seen that myself over the years. But what about the flip side of that? Tell me some of the things you think maybe you'll do differently this year, or just, I guess we're learning experiences that first year without knowing any different.
Yeah, absolutely. So in that first year, naturally it can be intimidating when I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm brand new to healthcare. I better connect. And I did. I mean, I live on a dirt road here in rural Colorado where there are typically more cows than people, we joke. And so to head into, last year it was in Vegas. This year it'll be Champions Gate in Orlando. There's often more people than in my hometown. And so, just mitigate that overwhelm and just jump right into it and keep learning. And I learned a lot last year, and I think to go deeper this year and develop those relationships in year 2 will be really, really great. And so I think, connect, but then learn. Really challenge yourself to learn new things and challenge yourself to challenge yourself, right? In order to grow and learn and, maybe pick a session that you wouldn't even think that would be on your normal radar to expand, your own growth. And I think that's the piece. Just really expand your relationships, expand your learning. It's a great opportunity to spend a few days learning.
Love that. Okay. What other tips do you have just for new attendees in general?
I would say definitely take a look at the sessions in advance. Plan out your sessions because I think that once you jump into it, it can be really busy. And if you have it already on your phone, I mean, they have a great app. So if you know what you're attending, it makes it that much easier to know that the breaks in between sessions, you can be connecting and you know what to expect for that day and maybe questions you might want to ask at those sessions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I think that's a really good tip as well for newcomers. Ask away. That's what the presenters are there for. And they want you to learn and grow and connect.
What about sessions and topics? Like, what do you hope to hear this year? What types of sessions are you looking forward to the most?
Oh my gosh. So I'm looking forward to everything. I know that sounds like the worst answer in the world, but the reality with HCIC is there is so much good content, so much good info, so many people to connect and reconnect with, that honestly, I think that it's easy to sometimes get in our own worlds as we are doing our jobs, working really hard. And so I think that just again, stepping outside my office, getting to reconnect with my peers, and really just there's always something new you're going to learn. And obviously going into the sessions what you're going to learn. But what I think is really awesome is coming out of those keynotes and coming out of sessions that, sure, what the topic is, you're going to expand your thinking in a way that you didn't plan on. And I think those beautiful nuggets of surprise really are some of the best takeaways. So some of the best plans are unplanned, and I can't wait to see, how I feel on that flight home, and, what that post-conference journal entry is like, because I can't plan it now. And that's the beauty of really attending the conference.
Taking a step back, maybe not just related to the conference, but what other observations have you had about working in healthcare marketing for a relatively short time, but not new to marketing at all, but learning the healthcare side of it? What have been just a key observation or two?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say attribution, especially being in rural healthcare, is a little different, right? Analytics are beautiful, but how we do that in a HIPAA compliant way. And that's something that, thanks to Hetty and Hop, who I met at HCIC, we're working with now, for some brand optimization and attribution work. And that, I think, was a key piece to me, coming in, using data to make decisions, and then realizing the opportunity we had, and how we do a great job while also measuring our success and measuring our opportunities. And so I think that that's a key piece, and, really being mindful of how we expand we have been under a huge marketing transformation here at Gunnison Valley Health. And we are a community rooted in relationships, as you can see behind me. However, we had a huge opportunity to be more in depth with beyond just hey, we exist, we're here for our community. Here's how we're here for our community, and make that bridge deeper to really help drive service line development and growth and awareness here in our community. And, how we do that digitally now is great, but we also want to make sure that we're A/B testing, we're measuring, we're monitoring, so we can build off of those successes and opportunities. And I think that's really interesting with weaving in AI processes and new systems. And so I think what's really great about where we're at as a small rural critical access hospital, as well as what HCIC can do for me, is it blends that together beautifully, and, kind of meets me where I'm at in my marketing journey to best support my organization.
Well, we really look forward to seeing you in person at this year's conference and everything else that's in store for us there. Thanks for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, everyone, let me welcome Jake Poore to the show. Jake is President and Chief Experience Officer at Integrated Loyalty Systems, and you're going to enjoy hearing his perspective on things. He's also one of the keynote speakers at the upcoming HCIC conference. So, Jake, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I like to ask this question at the beginning instead of, hey, what's your CV or your resume or whatnot? Like, what's your favorite thing about the work that you're doing right now?
Oh, well, I think impact is the greatest thing I love about I have the greatest job in the world. I used to think that when I worked at Disney, and now I work in medicine. What I love is giving people simple concepts, watching that aha light go on, and then they apply it to their world, and it's a game changer. And that's what makes my job the best, because they give it back to me, and now I have another story or tool to take to my next client. So that's the best thing.
Cool. So help those who aren't as familiar understand what business problems you're helping people to solve. And I assume those are the same types of things like you're hoping to gain insights about at this year's conference. So like what world do you live in? What problems are you looking to solve?
Ooh, I guess my mission is to elevate the human side of medicine. I started it on 9/11 when the second plane hit the Twin Towers. I resigned from my illustrious career at Disney, and I said the rest of my life is going to be dedicated to humanizing medicine. But I'm a pragmatic idealist. So how do we do team meetings? How do we do emails? How do we budget for this? What's the return on investment? What's the return on connection? It's got to be hired for, trained for, onboarded for it, and quite frankly, reward it when you see it and hold people accountable when you don't. So it's got to show up on how we keep score. And I think healthcare is about 30 years behind hospitality. And so that's what I'm trying to bring is the blueprints of hospitality to medicine.
Fantastic. Okay, so I do want to ask a little bit about your keynote, like I brought up here a moment ago. So the title is The New AI. Speaking of the new AI, authentic interactions in an artificial intelligence world. Okay, let's dig in on this. Like, how did you select that topic?
Well, at HMPS, HCIC, a lot of marketing conferences that I go to, it's the big unknown. It's the big hairy gorilla. It's going to take our jobs. It's going to take our caregivers' jobs. Our CEOs, all they want to do is embrace AI so they can cut a third of our workforce. And when you dig into it, it's not necessarily true, but there is some truth to it. So how is it that we can embrace this new technology? I'm old enough to remember when computers came out. Okay. I used to have a shoebox full of, index cards to put into the Fortran machine back in high school. And if you dropped that shoebox, you were in big trouble. But everybody said the same thing about computers. They said the same thing about the iPhone. They said the same thing about color TV. I mean, I wasn't around in the 50s when that came out, but it's going to burn people's eyes out. So I think when we don't know enough about a subject, we assume the worst and hope for the best. Well, that's not a strategy. So what I want to do is say, all right, what can I learn about AI or any technology, whether it's clinical or back of the house support system, whether it's EHR or front patient facing as far as scheduling, ambient listening, clinical care. What can I learn about what's good about it? And then what is the possible disadvantages of it? So we hear about it's going to make us faster, easier, take a lot of load off of our shoulders, of our plates. Well, that's good because physicians are burning out. 400 physicians committed suicide last year alone. How do we stop that trend, right? We have a huge burnout problem, a huge turnover problem, and the average recruiting cost for a nurse is $64,500. So if one nurse leaves, it's going to cost us $64,500 and about 3 to 8 months to replace him or her. So how do we backfill this idea of, okay, if it makes us faster, removes and makes us more efficient and removes the paperwork and cumbersome stuff that we have to document, then what's going to backfill it? And the little devil on one shoulder of my body says, oh, they're just going to backfill it with more patients. They're going to just raise our RVUs and our DRGs, and they're going to make us do 1-to-10 ratios instead of 1-to-6 ratios, nurse to patient. Well, we're already burning out. Nurse leaders are already overwhelmed. Marketing people are like, I'm scared to put any message out there because I'm scared to be a promise maker when my promise keepers can't deliver on the promise because they're doing Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So the good angel on this side says, okay, we've got to invest then in authentic interactions. We've got to dissect the DNA of what makes patients tick, not just what time it is, right? How do we imbue the humanity into the technology or train it so that the technology and the humanity can come together so that we can get the return on investment and the KPIs that we want, but not without losing the humanity in the process?
Is there a framework that you're walking people through, or just give us a little bit of a taste of how you'll approach this topic to help marketers see the practical ways they can apply what you're talking about?
Well, let me start with the end in mind. Let's be selfish, right? The people listening, they want to make more money. They want to get promoted. They want to not just keep their job. They want to grow, right? So do you want to make more money? You want to get promoted? Well, we had 5 top marketing executives on stage in Salt Lake City recently. And a question came from the audience. What's your secret to success? How did you get where you are as the CMO of the University of Chicago, Geisinger, Renown Health, Johns Hopkins? And the answer was unanimous. All about relationships. Well, that's not much of a mic drop. What do you mean? It's all about making connections, building trust. And guess what? We ask patients the same thing. Why is it that you can't remember one caregiver of your life-saving month in the hospital? You can't remember one person's name? It's because they didn't make a connection. So the aha, Jared, happened last November. I'm having lunch with a friend of mine who's an orthopedic surgeon. And he's uncomfortably laughing. He goes, can you believe this? I replaced this elderly person's hip, and she's yelling at me on my last appointment months after a successful procedure. And I said, well, what are you talking about? She said, I never asked her why she wanted the hip replacement. I said, well, did you then end up asking her? He goes, yeah. Apparently her son died a year before and her granddaughter was getting married in March and she wanted a new hip. So she didn't roll down the wedding aisle. She wanted to walk her granddaughter down the wedding aisle. And apparently I didn't ask her why. I said, why didn't you ask her why? He goes, I've been doing this for 25 years. I don't ask anybody why. I just do the assessment. I do the clinical biopsies. I do the procedure. We get them set up with physical therapy. They come up for the follow-up appointment. They usually hug and kiss me and thank me. But it's not enough anymore, Jared. So to your point, we've got to make sure that we create tactical, practical practices. This can't be a personality trait. This can't be if you have time. It can't be another thing that we do. We're busy people. It's got to be not another thing that we do. It's got to become who we are. So what is the intake process at the front desk? What does the medical assistant say and do versus just room you? What does the physician do than just clinical? We've got to take these operational clinical blinders off and say, all right, how do I make a connection in under 30 seconds without hurting my productivity? And here's the magic of all of this. And two physicians wrote a book called Wonder Drug, and they found out in all their research of 3,000 scientific research papers that they were looking for clinical outcomes. Does compassion matter? And the wonder drug is when you give, you get. So actually, when I make a connection with you, Jared, you make a connection with me reciprocally. I actually feel better about my job. I stay longer. I make more money. I then teach that concept to my up and comers. And this is a self-fulfilling prophecy. The workplace is better. People don't call in sick more often. So we're a better team. We have better outcomes, and it's a win-win-win. If you look at all the successful healthcare systems in the United States, they figure this out. But the rest of us are like, it's a mystery. Why are my patient satisfaction scores ebbing and flowing? Why does our turnover at 22%? By the way, the average recruiting costs or turnover for 1% turnover is $360,000. So if you do the math, you got 20%, you got $12 million lost. But isn't it interesting that the KPI for turnover is not on any executive's ROI accountability? So we've got to share at this conference, from the marketing suite to the C-suite to the operating room to the waiting room, we've got to share some pragmatic tools that we can all be practicing front of the house and back of the house to get on the same page.
Anything else that's kind of top of mind lately that you're like, I hope this is the thing that attendees will take away from this, but also just in the work that you do in general?
I hate to use an old Disney song, but there's in the movie Lion King, the hyenas are getting ready to take over Pride Rock. And there's a big song that comes over the screen, be prepared. As chief marketing officers, you got to be prepared, because here's one conversation I'm having with COOs, CNOs, and CEOs, chief executive officers, is how are we going to cut our workforce a third when this new AI thing comes in? And on the other hand, we've got chief marketing officers who are trying to make a promise and get activation of the people who actually show up at their door, that we can actually get them in the door and actually fulfill that colonoscopy that we scheduled to them 6 months ago. So we're leaving $1 billion on the table. And I got to keep my job as a chief marketing officer, not just bring them in the house, but how do we get them to activate on the schedules we already booked them for? And then we've got our frontline folks who are overwhelmed. So I think data has got to be your next research. Between now and our conference, get your numbers together. What does that one nurse cost us to learn? What does it cost us to activate one patient? One patient, one woman. They say the lifetime value of one woman in the United States as a patient is $1.4 million. But if she's married and has kids, it's $2.4 million. So how do we activate mom and the family to want to bring her business to you? It's got to be more than just clinical care. So our data's got to figure out, how, as a chief marketing officer, you can't just get your marketing data. You got to find out what the acuity data is, the length of stay, the return on investment, because what we're doing is we're building a machine that potentially is going to get backfilled with more work. And your marketing message we're never going to be able to deliver on the promise of our marketing message or our brand if that's the case. So be prepared, get your data in order. We'll give you some tools, come to the conference, and we'll light a fire.
Jake, thanks for giving us a preview of your keynote. Look forward to seeing you at HCIC. And I'll see you in Orlando.
in Orlando, my hometown.